to order the February 24th, 2021 meeting of the Neshoba Regional School Committee. At this time, those who so choose, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so we usually slip right into citizens' comments, but we are very happy and honored to welcome our new high school principal to our meeting, who has another obligation, like right now. So I'm going to turn this over to Brooke, and you can do the introductions, and then we'll have citizens' comments.
Great, thank you so much. Kate, welcome. It's nice to see you on the screen with us.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
So I'm just going to read a little bit about Kate, and we'll have lots of time to get to know her over the next couple of months. But tonight, and we're so glad that you snuck us in between your own meetings tonight, so thank you for doing that. So Kate Boynton has worked in secondary education for over 25 years. She currently serves as a principal at Reading Memorial High School, where she has led initiatives to improve school culture and foster social and emotional learning. In the past year, during the COVID-19 pandemic, she oversaw the transition to a hybrid learning model. She was co-head of the Global Leadership Academy, which was a 21st century global leadership program of the Brookline schools. She participated in an educational exchange of women educators in Kenya. I'd love to hear about that, by the way, and served for 4 years as a member of DESE's MCAS Bias Review Committee. Ms. Boynton earned a bachelor's degree from American University, a master's degree in teaching from Boston College, and a master's degree in organizational management from Endicott College. She anticipates completing a doctorate in education from UMass Lowell this spring. Prior to becoming principal at Reading Memorial, she was assistant principal at Bedford High School and earlier held teaching roles in both Brookline High School and Brockton High School. Ms. Boynton will assume the principal role on July 1st, 2021, following Steve Codianne, a longtime teacher and assistant principal at NRHS, who served as interim principal since late 2019. So Kate, we welcome you. We're glad that you're joining us. You're joining an amazing school district and an amazing administrative team. It's a great staff. I've shared that with you before. It's just an amazing staff and an amazing community with great kids. So we're really excited to have you here. So I'm not sure if there's anything that you'd like to share with us tonight. I know it's kind of in and out quickly, but.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Crunchy. I am so thrilled and excited to be able to join the Neshoba community. It's been something that has kind of been a dream of mine since I applied back in 2017, and I could not be more thrilled. I'm really looking forward to putting together a thorough entry plan, which I'd like to share sometime later in the spring with all of you, and then spend some time, even before July 1, which is the official start date, but spend some time through the entry plan process, getting to know each of you, and and learning a little bit more about the community and where you think the strengths are and areas for growth. And I'll be doing that with all constituents. So I could not be more thrilled to be able to join you.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm not sure if there's a member or two that might have a quick word to offer her before she gets off, because I know she's going to jump off quickly.
I do have future freshman night tonight.
No, I just want to echo Brooke's words about this district and the people that live in the communities and who work in the schools. Neshoba is truly an exceptional place, and we are so happy that you'll be joining us, and wish you only the best moving forward, and look forward to seeing your entry plan unfold. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Thanks very much, Kathy.
Mary McCarthy.
Okay, so Kate, I want to welcome you very specially as a BC Eagle to Eagle, and as well as well as UMass Lowell. That's where I completed my studies for my doctoral degree, and my dissertation was on global education. So that's all I need to say that I am so excited and so happy that you're here.
Mary, thank you so much.
Elaine?
I was just going to say that I'm really excited to have someone with such a breadth of experience that they can go from Brockton to Brookline. And I'm really energized to see what you can bring to Neshoba.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments? Rich?
I just like to say welcome. Glad you're here. People are really excited.
That's really good to hear because I am as well. Thanks, Rich.
Anyone else? Well, thank you so much for making time for us this evening, and enjoy your evening. I'm sure as happy as we are to welcome you. They're sad to see you go at Reading High School.
They are. They are. So that's, I need to give a little TLC in the next few months. They'll make it through though. They're a strong community. Thank you all so very much for inviting me to your meeting this evening. And I honestly, I cannot wait to dive in and get to know each and every one of you. So we'll be in touch very, very soon.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. So next on our agenda, we have citizens' comments. Before we do citizens' comments, I feel I need to issue some kind of a warning. My internet has been so kludgy, and in meetings I've had this week, everybody has frozen and it got messy. So anyway, Elaine is ready to fill the void should I fall off the screen, and I'll get back as soon as I can. So that being said, I'd like to entertain our citizens' comments. I'd like to welcome Sarah Coaches. Sarah, am I saying your name correctly? You got to unmute, Sarah.
Sorry. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and proceed.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Coaches, and my husband Steve and I have 3 children in the 5th, 3rd, and 1st grades at Florence Sawyer School in Bolton. As a mother and a pediatric nurse practitioner, I have both personal and professional experience with the challenges that this pandemic has presented to our children. As a daughter and a sibling of educators, I also understand the extreme challenges that the district and school face with educating our children during this pandemic. I come here tonight to request that the NRSD administration immediately begin planning for a full return for the young students in our district. The studies have repeatedly shown that elementary schools are not a source of COVID-19 spread. With the availability of the vaccine, declining case numbers, both statewide and locally, now is the time to begin seriously planning for our young students to return to in-person learning. The hardship that hybrid and remote learning has imposed upon the families in our district has been great. It has affected us emotionally, financially, and educationally. I have spoken with many friends in our district who are truly struggling, and I have been saddened to see many families who moved to this town for the public education now turn to private education because the private schools have found a way to bring students back full time. The figurative and literal gymnastics that parents are going through daily in order to educate their children while simultaneously working at a job and then also caring for other young children is a reality that many are facing, including my own family. This is a hardship that we all took on willingly when the pandemic hit because there were so many unknowns about how the virus spread. But now that nearly a full year has passed and the research is showing that schools are not contributing to the COVID-19 spread, it is time to return to the classroom. The challenges that this presents are not to be discounted, but I believe that with the ingenuity and expertise of our community members, teachers, and staff, we can overcome these challenges and return our children to the classroom safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Suzanne Sprague.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me? Okay, so I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Sarah just said, but first I wanted to thank our hardworking teachers, administrators, staff, and school committee. I appreciate that the last year has been heartbreakingly difficult, and I really appreciate all that all of you have done to keep our children and community safe. My name is Suzanne Sprague. I live in Bolton. I'm a primary care pediatrician and internist in Westboro, and a parent to a kindergartner at Florence Sawyer, as well as a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old. This letter, signed by 16 Bolton physicians, providers, and scientists, is in support of safe, evidence-based return of our children to school. The medical and scientific community has known that returning our children to school is important and safe for many months. The American Academy of Pediatricians endorsed the return to school as early as July 2020, and Dr. Fauci encouraged school return in August of 2020, but the data was preliminary, and the fear of COVID-19 was significant in our community and throughout the US. Since that time, there have been a number of very encouraging studies released in the medical literature, nearly unanimous in their findings. It is safe to send our children to school, and 3 to 6 feet, not just 6 feet of distancing, is safe when we wear masks and practice hand hygiene. Moreover, community spread of COVID-19 has largely occurred in private social functions and not in school settings. These studies were out of North Carolina, Minnesota, and Mississippi, where mask adherence is lower and community spread is higher than in Massachusetts. These studies revealed that in-school spread of COVID-19 was low and that transmission from students to teachers was negligible to non-existent. Meanwhile, hybrid and remote models are causing significant harm to K through 12 students. In our offices and hospitals, we've seen increased rates of suicide attempts, behavioral issues, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and self-injurious behaviors, as well as school failure. Nationally, Las Vegas recently voted to send their high schoolers back to school when they discovered that their teen suicide rate had doubled. Children are spending hours in front of screens, and it's detrimental to their overall health and is contributing to worsening obesity. In the hybrid model, particularly for the youngest learners, many parents have been forced to cobble together childcare solutions that are more risky for the spread of COVID-19 and sometimes low quality and even dangerous. Parents are suffering too. Many parents of school-age children are exhibiting signs of depression and anxiety. The amount of toxic stress, especially for teachers, frontline workers, single parents, and parents of children with special needs, is alarming. We know that mothers are disproportionately affected by this. Their sacrifices and strain are rarely mentioned in school conversations, but caring for families is part of caring for our community. These parents do not often have time to attend school committee meetings, and the stress of the last year has largely silenced them. Finally, we totally appreciate the fear of returning to school. Last spring, when COVID-19 first hit Massachusetts, we didn't understand how it spread. We didn't have access to protective equipment, and we didn't have data. We now have information, protective equipment, and data, and we need to start to temper our fear with science. I know that returning to our children to school will be challenging. It is not without risk, but the risk will continue to fall as high-risk populations are vaccinated. We ask that you return our students to school full-time. It is a risk worth taking for the children and families in the Neshoba district. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for all of your service over the last year.
Thank you, Dr. Sprague. Sharon has asked to make a statement as part of citizens' comments. Sharon?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share some thoughts. I want to share these thoughts with our community. So this is a message shared out for our community. There has been much talk over the past few months about the damage that is being done to our children by the changes in school models over the past year. Lots of talk about how children are suffering from not being in school, and talk about the complete loss of the 2020 school year. We have heard from parents who criticize the current school models and who argue that this year is hurting their children. We have heard from parents who lament this loss as something that will leave long-lasting deficits. It is true that our current circumstances are less than ideal. This is not what anybody wanted, wished for, or even imagined could happen. However, I encourage you to consider a broader perspective. First, consider suffering. It is true that there are many children who are suffering, children who live in poverty and do not have enough food to eat, children who are facing chronic or life-threatening illnesses, children who live in homes with an addicted parent or other adult, children who experience abuse, children who do not even have a place to call home. If your child is experiencing this kind of suffering, please do not wait. Do not wait another minute. Reach out now. There is help available to your family. I suspect, though, that in our communities, there are very few who experience suffering. The circumstances present challenges to our children, academically, socially, and emotionally. They create hardships that our children would not face were we in a more traditional school year. They force our children out of their comfort zones, for better or for worse. We wish things were different, but they are not suffering. Also, please consider that our children are listening to the words that we say. It may not feel like it, especially when you're asking your child to do something, anything really, for the third or the fourth or the 10th time, but they listen nonetheless. They hear us when we say that teachers do not care. They hear us when we say that this is a lost school year. They hear us when we say that they have fallen far behind academically and question how or even if this can be made up. They hear us when we say, referencing an article that has been brought to our attention on a couple of occasions, the loss of education during this school year has cost our children years of their lives.
Excuse me, Sharon, you're at 3 minutes.
Okay.
You could wrap it up, please.
Are these the messages that you wish your children to take from this year? Because your child is hearing these messages and they believe them because they come from the mouths of people that they know and love and trust. These messages cause true harm to our children as they foster a mindset that says these losses have happened to them and that they do not have any power to change them. I believe with my whole heart that this is not what any parent intends, but this is the message that our children are hearing. We must stop focusing on loss. We must change the focus to the belief that our children and we too will get through this moment. Life brings challenges, no matter what your circumstances. Overcoming challenges creates resilience. It makes us stronger and prepares us to face future challenges. The challenge to us as parents and educators is to embrace this opportunity to teach our children life skills, resilience, determination, grit, and so much more. Our children will be ready to step in when life returns to normal, whatever form that takes. I believe in our children. I believe that they will grow to learn things that we cannot even yet imagine. Please let's shift our focus to these positive messages and not hold our children back with messages of loss. What we do now shapes the future. Let's do our very best. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Elaine is going to read a comment from Amy Keogh from Stow.
Yep, so this is an email that Amy Keogh from Stow sent. Given yesterday's directive from Governor Baker and Commissioner Riley that Massachusetts schools open in full by April, I would love to hear what our district is doing to help support teachers being prioritized to receive a COVID vaccine. As you know, teachers want more than anything to be back in school with their students. Being able to have access to the vaccine will provide an extra layer of comfort for so many. Can you discuss what steps the district has taken to support teachers being vaccinated? I have heard of other districts in the state preparing to administer the vaccine to their teachers and staff by setting up sites. Is this something that Neshoba will be doing? Thank you for your time and acknowledgement in this matter.
Thank you. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Elaine?
Yep. I move to approve the consent agenda of February 24th, 2021, containing the meeting minutes of February 8th, February 10th, and the workshop minutes of February 18th, 2021, in the warrants of February 26th, 2021.
Can I have a second, please?
Second,
Was that you, Amy?
Leah.
Oh, Leah, hi. Okay. Any discussion? I will do a roll call vote. Leah,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and me, yes. Okay, thank you. So now we move to the committee, the chair updates. Just a reminder that next Wednesday, March 3rd at 6 o'clock is our public hearing for the FY22 budget. And I just want to make sure that we have a quorum for that meeting. Is anyone not able to attend 6 o'clock next week?
I may disappear for part of it, Kathy, for Stow has a recruitment volunteer night.
Okay, I just need to make sure that we have a quorum. Okay. All right, should anything change for anyone, please just let me know. I'm pretty sure we'll have the 6 folks necessary, but in any event, please let me know. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda has to do with the superintendent search. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. McCarthy.
Okay, thanks. And this will also fit in 2 places as the report of the personnel report, as well as an introduction right now. So the personnel subcommittee met 4 o'clock on 2/18. That was prior to the 2/18 superintendent search workshop. Kathy, Elaine, and I were there. We discussed composition of the screening committee, and we heard about the composition of screening committee in the last superintendent search in 2016. Then the PSA, and this was Kathy, Emery, and I met 2/23. Was that just yesterday? It was at 4 o'clock. And we were joined by Dorothy Presser of MASC at 4:30. We reviewed the timeline and approved it to submit to school committee tonight. We reviewed the survey by MASC, approved that, and we'll be recommending that to school committee. And also we talked about the idea that was brought up of a designated link on the district website, and that seemed to meet agreement. Everyone thought that that was a really good idea. And so we looked at the letter too that will be going out. So in regard to the superintendent search, and worked a little on that. Kathy is going to go over the timeline with all of us now, right? And our next meeting will be March 22nd at 4 o'clock, next scheduled meeting, but it seems that the personnel subcommittee has a lot of work to do. And so we will probably put another meeting in before that. So with that, Kathy, I think if you wouldn't mind going through the timeline.
Yep, Alita, could you put that up, please? Okay, can we get the whole thing on? So the first page, is it possible to show the whole thing? Okay. So the last time we met on the 18th, Dorothy Presser joined us to give us an overview of the process, and she gave us a draft timeline. And so after that meeting, I took her draft timeline, and the tasks on her timeline are all things that we have to do, but I looked at it and did a couple of things. I looked at ways to have certain decision-making tasks coincide with school committee meetings. And then also wanted to have specifics regarding dates. So if we just want to quickly go through this, as Mary mentioned today, we are looking for approval of the timeline. We do have some ideas for focus groups, and then approval of the online survey and the letter to stakeholders, which I'll explain in a minute. Working through the timeline, you can see that we have time cordoned off for conducting the online survey and focus groups. And we will be sending the survey out through the district's communication system to families and also to staff. And then we'll be sending the survey and the letter to town clerks for inclusion in their communication to residents. And we'd like to, what we're calling, launch this on March 3rd. So we should have all the focus group dates and times from Dorothy by Monday, March 1st. So at our next meeting, the PSC will bring a recommendation to the school committee regarding the composition of the screening committee and a recruitment plan. And that mainly pertains to parents who may want to apply to be on the screening committee. And we may have a community member at large. And so that communication will be directed at them. Other areas that will maybe on the committee, obviously people on the school committee who are interested in being on the screening committee can let Mary know as the chair of the PSC. And then Anne-Marie Stoika will handle communication to other people, other groups who will be on the screening committee, central office personnel, building principals, and teachers. So that's what we'll be doing in 2 weeks. Then you can see from March 11th to 19th, we'll recruit the volunteers, and I have information in the notes column about that. And then on March 22nd, the PSC will meet to make recommendations for school committee membership, which is are the actual people that will be on it. And then look at the data from the survey and the focus groups that will be used to put together a candidate profile. And then we will start to look at the advertising materials, what will go out to advertise the position. So the second meeting in March, second school committee in March 24th, we'll be bringing forward a recommendation for the school committee to approve the membership of the PSC, the actual names of the people who will be on it. And then the school committee Dorothy Presser will be in attendance to present the focus group and survey responses and share with us a draft of the qualifications and selection criteria. And then we can review the materials for advertising. Our goal is for MASC to be able to post the position on March 29th. Then the week of April 26th, again, we will have the actual date by March 10th. The week of April 26th, the screening committee will meet for an orientation with MASC, and at that time, they will be given the charge from the school committee in terms of the job they have to do as a screening committee. Friday, April 30th is the deadline for superintendent applications. And then on May 4th, the screening committee will meet with Dorothy Presser to select semifinalists to be interviewed. Dorothy had given us that date as May 5th, but that is a school committee meeting. So we don't want screening committee meetings on the same days as school committee meetings. So then May 10th to 18th, you can see that we have the dates that the screening committee will meet. And then the times they meet will be determined by the steering committee at their orientation. So Dorothy will work with the group to see if there's a common time that works for people to meet. Then Wednesday, May 19th, the screening committee will present a list of finalists to the school committee. And at that time, the screening committee will be discharged. The week of May 24th, finalists will visit Neshoba, and members of the school committee will visit finalist districts. The visits to the district, our district, are day-long events, and they include a tour of the district, public forums, and then the day culminates with a public interview of the finalist. And then Thursday, May 27th, school committee votes to appoint the superintendent. And then if everything goes the way it should, July 1st or as soon as possible thereafter, a new superintendent will begin. The two notes at the bottom, and I think Dorothy brought this up before, it's critical that all members of the steering committee be present for all semifinalist interviews to enable participation in voting for finalists. And then setting meeting dates for screening committee before recruiting can be invaluable in keeping the search on track by ensuring that interested volunteers are able to make the scheduled meetings. So, and then the other thing, and I think this was a question that was asked at our last meeting with Dorothy, and then Mary and I asked for further clarification. Current members who will not be on the committee after the town elections in May will not be eligible to serve on the screening committee. The idea is that someone should be able to see the whole process through. So if you guys have any questions about the timeline or the tasks, it's a good time to ask them, and either Mary or I will address them. Leah?
Can you guys just tell me what the CO stands for? I have two questions. What the CO stands for in the first line?
Central office.
Oh, thank you. And then my other question is it possible for MASC to kind of preview the opening to their network? I know that you're saying it won't. You have to get the criteria before, and therefore March 29th will be when we announce it to the world.
Actually, the world knows. We have been getting inquiries, informal inquiries. And I just think through the superintendent's grapevine, there is an awareness that we have an opening. And Alita received an email today from someone who was looking for the application materials. So the advertisement is a formality, I would say. People, I think, are aware. Mary, wouldn't?
Well, the only thing to add to that is that, if I remember rightly, we can ask Dorothy about this, Leah. MASC usually has a list of upcoming. So no information yet, but just so people have it in mind and on their radar. So I can call Dorothy, find out if
I noticed that it's not on the website right now under the upcoming. And the only reason why I bring it up is because I'm going to boast a little bit about our district. Mm-hmm. And that is, people are applying right now, right? Like Westford's about to hire, et cetera. There are people perhaps in that job pool who would rather be in Neshoba. And so letting them know, or making sure that people understand what their options are, could prevent somebody from taking a job that they would otherwise make their second choice.
Okay, good.
But Mary, you'll follow up with Dorothy.
I will, yes.
It was on the upcoming searches list. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I know that Dorothy indicated that she wanted to wait and see what we approve tonight. I think that once we approve some of these things, it's a little more comfortable. We don't have it. These will be posted on our they're in the meeting materials now, but once we approve things, as Mary said, we'd like to have a link on the website that says superintendent search, and we can add our documents to that. Mary?
And we're also very grateful Mike and Leah talked about putting this together in some form that would be perhaps more inviting, elucidating for the different community groups who would be interested in this. So whereas some of this will go out just the way it is, we would welcome something that would be even more engaging. And so Mike and Leah, yes, we would love for you to do that if you're still so inclined.
Other questions about the timeline? Joseph?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just had a quick question for the Personnel Subcommittee in regards to the recommendation that the screening committee be discharged immediately upon presentation of the finalists to the school committee. Is that a recommendation of MASC? Is that coming from the Personnel Subcommittee? And I'm wondering why we would do that. I could think of a number of reasons why we'd want to keep that committee in place until at least after the finalist has been chosen. So I'm just wondering if somebody from the Personnel Subcommittee could comment on that.
Well, I think it's pretty, it was the recommendation of MASC. The charge of the school committee, of the screening committee, will be to bring forward X number of finalists to the school committee to interview. And once they have done that, their job is done. If, however, we needed to reconvene them, I don't see that that would be much of an issue, but it's pretty much, I think, the way that this works. It certainly was part of the MASC timeline. Mary, any thoughts?
That's what I understood too, that this is the protocol, the way it's done. We could certainly reconvene, but once the screening committee has done its work, then it becomes our school committee decision. And so, you know, one part is finished, and then the most important part for us, that final decision begins.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Amy, did you have a question?
Yeah, just an issue of clarification. The last note on this timeline says that current members who will not be on the committee after the town elections in May will not be eligible to serve on the screening committee. When you say current members who will not be on the committee, you're talking about the school committee, the personnel subcommittee, which I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's an important clarification. School committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I realize that the Personnel Subcommittee has a set of pretty important decisions in this process, and I appreciate very much the fact that they'll be spearheading this. I realize that there are also two kind of phases with regards to the screening committee. One is determining sort of the broad composition, sans specific membership, and then the other one is bringing forth the membership recommendation. I'm wondering if the Personnel Subcommittee, partially because it consists, I believe, of only 2 members, if we've thought about how we will vet the applications. In other words, what criteria, have we discussed what criteria will be used to vet those, and will those criteria be brought forth in front of the school committee?
Can I answer this one, Mary? So a couple things. This Personnel Subcommittee will meet prior to the next school committee meeting on March 10th. And what we will be bringing forward are some options for the composition of the screening committee. So I think we shared the last time there were 2 members of the school committee, 3 parents. We had a spot for a community member, but it was never filled. We had a town administrator, 3 teachers, etc. So we're going to look at different options for composition. And then based on what went out last time, I call it an application letter. There is a form that will go out to everybody. And basically, we are looking for people who to articulate their interest in being on it, that can make all the meetings, and that understand that this is a confidential process. So we're not collecting resumes or anything like that. And but we'll be bringing that forward on the 10th for the committee to look at. And again, yeah, it'll just be updated. Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, so just real quick, just to clarify then, Personnel Subcommittee will be bringing forth maybe 2 or 3 different options, at which point there will be a discussion based on what we feel is most appropriate, and then we will vote on one.
That's correct.
Got it.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Are we ready for someone to make a motion to accept the recommendation of the PSC with regard to the timeline for the superintendent search?
So moved.
Oh, Mary, you second.
I'll second it. Thank you,
Okay.
Steve. Yes.
Any questions or comments? I just want to say that as we get more information, there are some dates. I know that Alita and Dorothy are going to be talking to look at some dates for a couple of things to make sure there are no conflicts with other things going on in the district. So I will update the timeline when we have those dates to plug in. Okay, any other questions or comments about the timeline? Oh, Amy?
Yeah, I just have a question about I missed the workshop, but I did watch it afterwards. I did my homework, but I was curious about, I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding that this timeline is designed with the town elections in mind, right? So like the town election in Bolton is May 10th. The town election in Stow is May 22nd. I don't know when the Lancaster one is, but
No, the election in Stow is not the 22nd. The election in Stow is May 8th. We went through that all last week.
yes, I saw the emails. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. I wrote May 8th and May 22nd. I think the town meeting is
Town meeting is maybe the 22nd, but the election is still the 8th.
So, yeah.
okay.
Amy,
So I just want to make sure the timeline, when it's showing the week of May 24th for finalists to visit Neshoba and the school committee visits to finalist districts, that's taking into account that there may be new members on the school committee who are participating in that.
That's correct. And Dorothy addressed that, and it's the role of the school committee to hire the superintendent. So whoever's on the school committee at the time, that's their role. So by the time we get down to the finalist phase, there will be new people on the committee.
Right. Okay. I think that's an important thing to make sure the community is aware of.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Seeing none. Let's start with Amy. Approve the timeline, yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay, Amy is yes. Brett?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Mike?
Yay.
Mary?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Elaine?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
And me? Yes. Okay, thank you. So the next item that I would like to share is what I am calling the memo to stakeholders. So Alita, if you could bring that up. Mary, do you want me to go over this too, or do you want to do this one?
No, I think you should do this.
Thank you. Okay, so the idea is that this is the body of a communication that will go out, the district school community, meaning the families, and then we will send something out the same, maybe with a couple of tweaks, to the town clerks in Bolton, Lancaster, and Stow, so they can push it out to the folks on their listserv. And then, as I said, Anne Marie will handle communication with the NREA central office and building administration. And this is just giving them, this is like our kickoff to the process. And so, so the first part just says what we're about and who's doing our consultation. The second paragraph reiterates our responsibility, but that we are including opportunities for members of the school community and the community in large to participate. And we list the 4 areas that are open to folks for participation. Then I've taken the big timeline and sort of squished it into a little timeline and just the pertinent things. So where I have the openings for the survey and the focus groups, Dorothy will provide us with links to both. And so when people get this, if they want to do the survey, they just click on it right there and boom, there they are. Then the conducting focus groups right now, and we're going to circle back to that in a minute, but there are different focus groups that MASC is recommending that we have, basically 5 or 6 sessions, one to include central office personnel and school administrators. It says 1 for teachers and staff on mine, but I think we upped it to 2 for teachers and staff, 2 for parents, and 1 for community at large. And so Dorothy would have the pertinent links for those depending upon the audience we're sending it out to. So if you click on that, you're not going to see all 6 focus groups. You're going to see the 1 or 2 that pertain to your group in particular. And so then the rest of it basically is the same as what we had before, and then end by saying that the superintendent search will be a standing item on each school committee agenda until the process is complete. Additional information and updates about focus group, screening committee membership, and candidate forms will be sent to you via school messenger. Now that would be for families, and then whatever the internal email process is for administration and faculty. And then I'm not quite sure what the system is for the towns, but we would update that based on the group that it's going out to. So this is what we are proposing as our kickoff letter, to include the link to the survey and information about the focus groups. And I'd like to hear if anybody has any questions or comments relative to this letter. And I can't see everybody. Oh, there you are. Okay. Sharon?
I don't know if this is a question specifically to this letter, but does Dorothy run the focus groups?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also the survey that's going out is something that MASC has, it's part of their package. So that survey is already crafted.
Yes, and we can speak about that in just a minute. And Mary is going to speak to about the survey.
Sorry, didn't mean to jump the gun.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Sharon. Amy?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for all the work you've put into preparing these materials for tonight. It's obvious there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and you're going to have a lot of work ahead of you too. Didn't want to forget to say that. But my question is whether we could add a link to the website that you talked about creating on this memo, or let people know that there will be, they can access all of this.
Yep.
Via the website. And then I had one other question about whether there was any discussion of focus groups, including school councils or PTOs or PACs, or whether those people kind of fall into the category of parent.
Mary, do you want to talk about what Dorothy said about the focus groups?
Well, as far as Dorothy's recommendation, then those groups you're talking about, Amy, would be included with the parents. And I also think that it can be very instructive for the general group of parents to have school council, to have PTO, et cetera, home and school, to have those people there too, because that can save a step of, if it were just with school council, then they would have to go back and get that information out this way. I mean, there's a learning that goes on, learning process in focus groups. Hearing other people's questions is also very helpful. So Dorothy's recommendation is that we have at least 2. She talked about not limiting, let me see if I have this right, Kathy, not limiting the number of people. So people don't have to necessarily, we'll wait and see how she talks about that, but that's the way she's done this, that it's open. She wants to give a couple of different time slots. And so some people might be available, later in the afternoon or early evening. And so she's done this quite a bit, and this seems to work. And I think it's great that she's not going to limit the number of people. So that's what she said.
She made, if I can just interject after Mary, is that you get most of your information from the survey. There more people are likely to fill out the survey in comparison to the folks that show up for focus groups. And she said there have been, because everything is done virtually now, sometimes she'll have a focus group and only 2 or 3 people will show up. So, but we do have these opportunities, and but that was just another point that she made. Amy, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I didn't mean to restrict it to those groups. I actually meant like additional focus groups for those organizations. I was just wondering if that was part of the discussion or not. Having never been through this before.
She polls the group to, when you start, you see how many are parents, how many elementary, how many middle. So I think that can be part of her criteria. And then the other thing to remember, and I did include, we're not going to go over it tonight, but I did include for your information the scope of services that MASC provides. And when we asked how many, I was thinking 2 or 3 focus groups. She said, no, we'll do 5 or 6. So we've got to keep it within the scope of services. Yeah. Mary?
And this is something that I did bring up in the workshop, that Dorothy, as Kathy said, that a lot of the information gained in the focus groups is very similar to what the information that's gained through the online survey, and said to us, if you wanted to, you could just go with the survey. And this is something that I did say when we did the workshop, that we thought about our district, and we said no. We'll even if it turns out to be a lot of duplication, we know that people want to have a voice, a literal voice, not just a survey. So we wanted to do both, and she was willing to do this many. But she did say that other districts have just not done the focus groups at all. But we will.
Other questions about the letter? Leah?
I just wonder if we say we get 45 applicants, the screening committee is responsible for bringing that down to a reasonable number?
Well, that's something that the screening committee will discuss during the orientation. The last time we did this, we had 40 applications, and I think that Dorothy did an initial screening based on our criteria, and then presents a subset of that to the screening committee, who then makes decisions to whittle it down to the number of people they want to interview. And I think, as I said the last time, there were 7 resumes that they selected of people to interview. And then they sent forward 5 finalists, and 2 withdrew before the finalist interview. So we had 3 very strong candidates at the end. Other questions about the letter? So let me just review. the feedback, I think it's a great idea to add a link to the website where we're keeping all of our information. And then I think that was the only suggestion. And this will be updated based on the different versions that need to go out, and that we know who, how we will be updating them. Are there any other questions or comments about the letter? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the subcommittee's recommendation with the addition that was brought up about the website?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so Rich, you made the motion. Amy seconded. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, Joseph, yay or nay?
Yes.
Mike?
Yay.
Yay. Mary?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Elaine?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Me, yes. Amy?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes.
So now I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk about the survey.
So we're not putting the survey, but people have seen this. Have they seen it? So I'm just not
Has
sure.
everybody seen the survey? Do you want us to put it up or not?
Did people want this up?
Why
Do you
don't
have it?
talk, Mary,
All right.
and then if we
So
need to-
here is Dorothy's recommendation in terms of the survey. That we use the survey as it is and not make a lot of changes to the survey. Now, and when we're thinking about surveys, we're not necessarily talking about validity and reliability. However, this is a survey that MASC has used on numerous occasions, and what they've done is that they have updated it. I was very interested to see, I'm sure Elaine was too, looking for something in terms of social justice, anti-bias, et cetera. And I wanted to make sure that was there, and it was there. So everything I thought of was already there. And because they've used it before, that, we're not going to be able to prove the case of validity and reliability, but it has been vetted by MASC. And so Dorothy's recommendation to us as the consultant is that we would use this survey as it is. So with that, if we can look at it, or if we can talk about it, if people want to. Where's Kathy? There she is. Okay, that's what I was going to say about it.
Okay, and the only thing I have to add on to that is, I like Mary, I was looking for references to social and emotional learning and equity and acceptance. And I have, I saw those, and so I know it's been updated, and it's a good way to get a lot of information in a relatively short period of time. And MASC does all of the analysis and compilation for us, and we will be able to see the background and the raw data, if you will. So any questions or comments about the survey? You guys have to move, because if you don't move, I think you're frozen, and I think my thing's not working. Okay, just whatever. Mike.
So the survey provides us, in the format that's going to be offered digitally, provides us with quantifiable data. Is there any way that we can kind of collate that data and then come back to the committee and kind of share that out?
That's what MASC does. That's their job.
So they're going to be sharing that out with the committee?
Yeah.
My mistake. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I think it's the March 24th meeting. Dorothy comes and she brings us the information about the focus groups and the survey. That's why MASC is such a bargain, because they do all this work, and we just put our feet up, smoke our cigars, drink our brandy, and we're off to the races. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Steve moved, so I know I'm not frozen. All right. So can I have a motion to accept the Personnel Subcommittee's recommendation to move forward with MASC's survey?
So moved.
Steve moved, second?
I'll second.
And that's Leah seconded. Any further questions or comments? Okay, so let's start again. I will start with Mr. Rubenstein
Yes.
and Elaine.
Yes.
Leah.
Yes.
Me, yes. Amy.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so I think that, let me check the agenda. How many pieces of paper? Okay, we are. Okay, so I think that concludes our business for the superintendent search. To sum up, we would like to launch this on March 3rd, and we'll have pertinent dates. I don't know. Oh, there's both of them. Hi, Clark. Hi, Sydney. Everybody go get your kids, bring them in so we can see them. Okay, sorry. So we're going to launch on March 3rd. We should have all the pertinent dates. We will have a link on the website so people can access this. And Amy and Mike, if you want to gussy this up or however you want to work your magic with it, please do, but we'd like to get it out and then we can retrofit everything. Is that okay, Mike? Okay. I think now we are ready to move on. And then, consult the timeline. Our next big decision will be about composition of the screening committees, and we will do that on March 10th. Okay. So now it's time for the superintendent's report. If someone could let Brooke know that.
Yep, I did.
Oh, thank you.
She's on her way.
Amy, did you have a question?
Did you need to talk about the cost and scope of services?
Oh, no, that was just FYI. We sort of touched upon those in general, but I wanted to make sure that you guys, and you approved MASC for the consultant. I signed the contract, but I wanted to make sure that you guys could see the total scope of services. And so it's just information. And now it's part of our meeting material so the public can see it as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Okie doke. Hi, Brooke.
There.
It's all yours.
Okay, sounds good. And is Lisa back? Lisa's there too. Awesome, thank you. So we're going to kind of take a look at number 2 and 3 together underneath the superintendent's report. And I've asked Lisa to join us. She's going to do kind of a bit of a brief COVID update for the district and our 3 communities and give us a bit of a flavor of where things are at. And then we're going to talk about where we were headed initially with a partial student return initiative, which has of course completely changed in the last 24 hours. So we're going to talk about that too. And we've got the high school, some representatives from our high school leadership here so they can do just a bit of a brief update. By the way, great job on the s'more today in the video. Loved watching that. So great job to our high school team on that. So Lisa, let's start with you quickly. If you don't mind giving a brief update on COVID, that would be wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having me again, as always. Just wanted to give you some quick numbers of totals. So far, the total of in-school staff and students totals across the 3 towns, we are at 93 since October. We had no positive cases in September, and that starts of October. As remote learning is concerned, we have a total of 24. Those numbers I know are higher than that. That's only what's been reported to us. So we're not always getting reports from students that are fully remote. If they were positive, if not, sometimes we receive that information via secondhand and then follow up with them to offer services and or support for their households. But again, that number is really low. Over February vacation, we really truly saw a big spike in those that were asymptomatic because of travel. The recommendations for the travel ordinance or order, we follow those Massachusetts guidelines, and we had many students and staff that had tested, even though they had no symptoms, ended up testing positive. So prior to return, we had 10 positives across the district during just February school vacation while we were not in school, but had to not do any contact tracing because of that. Excuse me. As far as the 3 towns, I'm sure you are aware, but if you have not seen that, Bolton was green for the last few weeks and turned into red this past week. Lancaster continues to bounce between red and yellow zones, and Stow was green for a few weeks and then has now turned gray. We're really not seeing much in the schools in Stow currently right now. We still see an uptake in Bolton and Lancaster.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions specific to COVID and where we're at that are specific to Lisa before we let her get off and enjoy her evening? Mike?
Yep, just real quick, Lisa, I know, and this makes sense to me, I know that you said that not everyone who may have tested positive who are in the remote model may have reported, and that could have kind of limited our data. I'm wondering if it's fair to say that we may very well see a small spike because those remote kids, at least at the high school level, will be returning to a hybrid model and will therefore be reporting. Is that accurate or not?
Absolutely, that we expect to see that because when they're in school, when they don't show up to school, we follow up each nurse, and then I follow up with them on a daily basis. We do attendance every day, and we do follow up with students that do not attend school to confirm if they were out, because if they were ill, if they are ill, it's our policy that they're tested. So those that are ill at home, that are remote, they may be positive and they're just not going to report it to us. Some do, and we appreciate that when they do, because then we can offer services for them. If they need somebody for the grocery store or meals or any other assistance that the household may need, especially if the entire household is on isolation. We're seeing that quite a bit in the community, that if we have multiples in the household, obviously testing positive, it's hard to separate based on your living arrangements. But yes, it is true to say that we're expecting those numbers to go up a little.
All right, great, thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa? Elaine?
Thank you. I know there's been some confusion about Massachusetts red, yellow, green, and the CDC's version, which I think is red, yellow, blue. I'm not sure why they chose blue. And I know maybe it's too much detail to get into all the specific differences, but can you clarify that those are different metrics?
Unmute, sorry, I was looking for the unmute button there. They are different metrics, but to be quite honest with you, I only follow the Massachusetts ones at this time when we talk about our school district. So I'm probably not as prepared to discuss the differences between the two at this time, because I really do, for our purposes of community, I'm following that one.
Okay. I just think maybe it's clear, maybe it's good to point out for the community that those are different metrics. I think the CDC ones are county-based.
Correct. Yes.
Other questions for Lisa? No? Lisa, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good evening. So as part and parcel of whatever transitioning we're doing here as we're moving forward and going into the tail end of the school year, we're all set at the high school for our hybrid right now. It's been a huge undertaking for us. And I think for the high school, I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that the high school had to truly prepare for 2 completely different models this year. And that was a lot of work for our staff, a lot of work for our administration, and even our central office administration as we help to support, and whether it's somebody like Rob Frieswick making sure all the signage was properly, or Tom Hoult organizing the meals, or Lisa organizing. I mean, everybody was on all hands on deck. And I did send out your s'more tonight, just so you know. I did pass it along to the school committee members and to and the video as well. And Steve, you just always look so comfortable in those videos. So do you want to just give us a brief update, Steve and Janine? I don't see John or Matt on here, so I think it's just
John's on. John's doing his doctor stuff. He's got a class tonight, so I'm not. He might show up at 7, but I'm not sure. Yeah, the s'more. We tried to answer as many questions as we possibly could. I think I saw some questions that the school committee put out that I think we answered. I think we're prepared. I think we're ready to go. And I've been stressing to the staff, we're going to crawl, walk, run, just like we did at the beginning of the year. We've got a lot of students coming in that haven't been here before. I know there's a lot of parents out there a little concerned about that, but I had a faculty meeting today, and the faculty is all on board. They're going to be in the hallways. They're going to be helping the kids out. Going to try to make sure they know where they're going. I think we're ready.
Awesome. Thanks. Janine, anything that you want to add?
No, I mean, I think that's it. We've been preparing. You know the energy that comes when students are in the building. So I think that we're all looking forward to that. We're going to be in the hallways. We're going to be showing our students around. We did have 187 ninth graders come for orientation. I know it was at the beginning of the school year, but they have been here before. So we're hoping that they feel comfortable when we come, and we'll show them what to do next.
Great, thank you.
The Academy Awards got a hold of me. They want to bring me to Los Angeles in July.
And I assume that was probably John that was doing the taping, because he wasn't on camera anywhere.
No, he was hiding. He was hiding out. He knew it was a bad scene, man.
Steve can see the light at the end of the tunnel right now.
Yeah. Yes. Any questions for Steve and Janine right now? Kathy?
I just want to thank both Steve and Janine, because they're here, but the whole administrative team and the faculty. This has been, I mean, people talk about it not being normal, unprecedented, all of this stuff, but I think the way that the leadership has led the staff to make the models that are going to be most beneficial to students, and requiring, changing the amount of work planning that goes into it is just so above and beyond what a normal school year looks like. And I just want to commend everybody involved. Steve for his leadership as the principal, Janine, Matt, and John for their leadership and organizing the task forces and being so responsive. And at least when I see you guys, pleasant and patient. If it were me, my hair would be on fire. And you guys have just done such a good job, and not easy, because we know that parents want us to care about their children as almost as much as they do, and we do a pretty good job of that. But there's a certain amount of anxiety, fretting, all sorts of things that come your way, and you just do such a great job. And I just want to thank you for all that you've done. And the good news is that the school year is almost over.
So Steve,
and I have to thank the faculty for being so understanding and helpful. I mean, they've really stepped up, and they're looking to be out in the hallways to make sure students know where they're going. We're gonna treat the first couple of weeks as if it's the first day of school again, and that's always a kind of a slow process. And everybody's on board, and they're going to do the best they can to make it work. Oh, there's John.
There's John. John's coming on. Yeah. Hi, John. Welcome.
Hi. Sorry.
Not a problem. And I just want to echo too what Kathy was saying. Steve, Janine, John, just hats off to you and your staff and everybody who's worked so hard. I think we're all excited for our March 1st date. So can't wait. And we thank you so much for joining us tonight. So if there are no other questions, then we want to be able to let them go and have an evening too. Leah?
So I would say also thank you so much. I probably speak for many parents when I express such gratitude for you guys really pulling this weight and making this happen. I think March 1st is going to be a great day for so many kids. So thank you. I don't know that, Brooke, this question is for your administrative team, perhaps for you, and maybe cannot be answered, but I feel compelled to ask it. I know that the worry that was stated early on in this process has come to pass, and that there are staff members who, within the personnel protections, I get it, there are staff members who are going to make a choice to take a leave of absence. I wonder if you can tell us, or the community, the parents, were we able to find certified replacements? Can you tell us?
Actually, yeah, I'll turn that over to both Steve and Anne Marie. I can answer it as easily as they can. Steve, do you want to?
We absolutely were. It worked out really well. We were kind of scared about it, but it worked out pretty good. And I mean, John Kroll interviewed two math folks and talked to the girl that's coming in, one of the professors, and assured us that she's very, very good at what she does and can teach the subject matter that we're looking for. So we were really happy with the people that we got. We put that's in the SMORE as well, the new folks that we have coming in. And we have another math person that may be coming in as well. We just haven't had a confirmation yet, so we haven't we don't
have anything to report out tonight. Yeah.
So we were happy with that. That was one of our fears as well, but it worked out pretty well.
I think it worked out better than we had anticipated, quite frankly. Yeah. Okay, anything else for the admin team before we let them go? Nope. Okay. Thank you so much. As always, Steve, Janine, John, nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
We're going to move along in this whole kind of discussion. We were coming tonight prepared to do a presentation. We were all excited about a K return, and we thought we were on such a great pathway. We thought we had a model that we could replicate. I mean, we put a lot of work into it, a lot of effort, a lot of thought, and then yesterday happened, and then today happened. And it was like, okay, this model is not where we're going to go now. And so what I want to do is kind of give you a bit of a brief. I said in my superintendent's report that you got, that we would update you today on basically the governor's presser yesterday and the commissioners meeting today. And Todd and I will kind of both help to fill in. And Todd, if I forget anything along the way, then please feel free to pipe in. But I'm actually going to read from some of our notes that we made today. And so hopefully, if it seems a bit disjointed, just know that it's kind of our random notes that we're putting forward. So the Commissioner of Education made a bit of a proposal to the Board of Education Monday morning. We did not see this coming. We had no advanced warning at all that the presser was happening at 2 o'clock that afternoon. It just kind of funneled out right around noon, actually, I think, or just before noon, Todd, that when we got word that this was starting to go down, we didn't know really what to expect, and suddenly stuff started to leak out. So we kind of had an idea at by 2 o'clock where they were going to go. But as superintendents, we had no idea, no advance warning at all. So the commissioner had talked to the Board of Education about the notion of bringing back children into the schools, talked about the mitigation processes that were in place and felt that they were working really well. And I think we all agree with that. The COVID numbers, of course, are trending in the right direction, I think, for all of us. So we're all happy about that. Some districts already had plans to bring students back, and we were one of those districts that we had plans in the pipeline. So the commissioner is recommending a phased-in approach with elementary students first, then followed by middle school students. High school students, he wasn't sure whether that we'd be able to phase them fully in or not this year, but his number one goal really was the elementary, looking to start with the elementary and looking to start with them the first full week of April with tentative dates thereafter for high school, middle school, and high school. He acknowledged that the teachers are next in line to get the vaccinations. I do want to speak to that because, of course, that kind of came up tonight in the citizens' comments, and again, it's one of those things is why I hear that, we get notes in from people. Well, we hear this district is getting vaccinations lined up for their teachers. And while I was offline tonight, I was actually connecting with another superintendent. And I think that somebody thought that they could do it and then it couldn't happen. And I'm seeing a lot of that happen right now. So even though some people think that they are going to be a vaccination site, it isn't happening. And I think, I had a great meeting, I thought this morning, well, actually Todd joined me this morning too with our town administrators. And I think that they thought that they had a really good plan. I think we all thought that they had a good plan. Lisa has been working, our Lisa Gildicke has been staying in contact with our Bolton fire chief in terms of what can we do to help support this. And I'm not so sure now that the plan that they had is necessarily going to happen. And in large part, it's because of a myriad of factors, the number of shots that have to be given, the number of shots that are available, all of this kind of stuff comes into play. But I'm so appreciative of our town administrators because they said, we're not giving up here. We're going to keep going after it. So I'm so appreciative of them. So yes, do we know that teachers are next in line to get vaccinations? Yes. Are we set up in any way, shape, or form to be a vaccination site right now? The answer is no, we're not at this point in time. My understanding from the meeting this morning is that the state is really considering sticking to the large vaccination sites rather than a lot of individual sites. But we all know that could change in a heartbeat. But that's kind of where it stood this morning. The commissioner also noted that he understands that a variant could change everything in the next couple of weeks. And so we have always said that, not necessarily about the variant, but we've always said, this is where we stand right here, effective tonight, effective at this hour, this is where we stand. And that's really the approach that he was taking today as well. I think that he certainly seems to think that, as we all do, that it's just so important to get our students back. And again, we still deal with the mental health issues and such of many of our children right now. So, in our district, because even though we're in hybrid, a lot of things still come to the table to us that we help to support our families and our students with. So we know too how important it is to get our children back into classrooms. So of course it was nice to hear him talking about that. He mentioned that the president has been clear that kids in elementary schools need to be back within the 100 days. He says that we've set this, we're looking at setting this up so that parents can continue to have the remote learning option if they choose. But he stressed that that's for this current year from now until the end of June, so just the next couple of months. And he did talk briefly about a waiver process, but I think Todd and I would say that we don't feel that the waiver process is something that we would have any interest in looking at in Neshoba because we feel that we're ready to go. So with that, the timing, of course, timing is everything. And the timing right now looks like they're going to try to have another Board of Education meeting within the next 2 weeks. And this will come forward at that point in time for a vote from them. He's, of course, hopeful to get a green light from them to continue to push forward. And if that happens, then there is new guidance ready to roll out, but that can't be rolled out, of course, until he gets the approval and the go ahead to do something. So at this point in time, I mean, other than the fact that we got some new updated transportation guidance, we don't really have any other new guidance and aren't expecting any more guidance for at least 2 to 2.5 weeks. He knows they did acknowledge today how critical that is, because it just continues to put us like, we'll start working on this right away. We've got another meeting tomorrow morning with our administrative team, and then another working meeting on Monday. And so we feel kind of ready to go after this. But it is disheartening when you work really hard to build a model and then the guidance comes out differently after, and you have to go back and reinvent something. And that's very, very frustrating. So I think we're being measured with our work right now, so that we don't find ourselves doing the same kind of thing and finding ourselves in the same position again. The whole notion of the social distancing and the 6 foot, of course, is an underpinning on all of this. But the commissioner was abundantly clear today that the 3-foot mark is the mark that we should be looking at as the measure for social distancing. And of course, the 3-foot mark really goes kind of from middle of desk to middle of desk. And so if we're doing the 3-foot mark, then we should be able to get the majority of our kids in. As you can well imagine, the number of phone calls being made to tent suppliers right now and rental places is through the roof. And we're one of those districts right now that's out there trying to get tents. And Rob and I were having some conversation on that this evening, you know, as he's trying to find some tents that we can put up and then into place right away too. So lots to come on that. I think, Todd, did I hit the salient points? I think I think we need to kind of wait for further guidance now from the state, but that's not going to stop us from moving forward with our model building, because the truth is, even though we worked hard on the kindergarten and model, we've had to shelve that. I think there are some components from that we can still put into place and kind of twist now, or tweak, if you will, to try to make it work for this. So Todd, any additional thoughts?
No, I would agree with you. There's been some really good work done already around that initial kindergarten model, which is why we needed to put that on pause for this evening, based on what the governor talked about yesterday, as well as what the commissioner talked about today. We're aware that, you know, that vote is going to come down within 2 weeks, and then that will be a short turnaround time. So as you indicated, our teams have been working and brainstorming on this return for quite some time. So we are ready to hit the ground running with that, like we were, you know, this past summer with, you know, once we got kind of the specific guidance on what we need to do to move forward. So we are ready to go.
Yeah, I think so too. So I suspect that when we have our next meeting, we'll have, hopefully by then, we'll have the Board of Education's decision in hand and ready to present very differently than we would have presented tonight.
Right.
So that's a snapshot of the last 24 hours from the governor and the commissioner. I appreciate their thinking. I appreciate and respect the push to get kids back into the buildings. I think we all feel that. I know, Mike, you and I've had multiple conversations about this, you know, feel very strongly about it. For me, and I've said this all along too, it's not just the academics that, you know, we need to focus on. It's the mental health and well-being of our students, and just connection as a community, and all those really good things that will come with getting our children back in. Kathy?
So yeah, I have a question, but then I'd like to see if other members have questions as well before we move on to the teaching and learning. So I just want to make sure that I understand that we have been planning for a kindergarten return on or around April 1st-ish. But because of what is coming out from the DESE now, we are perhaps looking at a full elementary return April 1st-ish.
A fuller return. We're not exactly sure what this looks like yet.
Right. But you guys are working on this.
Yeah.
You're not waiting around for the board and Riley to give the thumbs up and come up with their plan. So we are in process so that when the decision comes down, we're probably more than halfway there, because if people are waiting until the middle of March for something to implement at the beginning of April, I mean, I've said it a million times, I don't know if these people have ever really worked in a school district or understand the way schools work. So, okay, I just want to be clear that even though we're shelving the K plan, we're really not. We're expanding it to an elementary, and we're working on that. And we'll be ahead of the game come the middle of March when the DESE tells us what they want us to do.
Right. Our hope is that we'll be able to just tweak the models that we've got in place to be compliant with the DESE. In a perfect world, that's where we'll be in about 2 weeks' time.
Great. Other questions for Brooke? Amy?
Yes, thanks. I was wondering if you have plans to survey families in this
So
next 2 weeks to get a sense for how many might be willing to take advantage of a full return option with the free?
that you're absolutely right. I would say though that we actually worked on a survey previously because you recall that we wanted to send a survey out, and then as soon as Monday morning happened and we got wind of this, we stopped our work and said, okay, we better wait until we see. And I see Todd shaking his head. Yeah, we stopped our work on that because it didn't make any sense for us to survey families about things that we thought we needed to survey them on, when in fact the DESE has just taken some of that right off the table. Some of the things that we're waiting on right now, for example, is lunch. Like lunch is still problematic, and they don't have concrete advice for us yet. You know, there are still things that are out there, like he brought up singing and choral classes and stuff like that, that we still can't run. So I mean, there's still going to be things like that that are at play that we're going to have to think about and consider. So I think the survey, and we said to the principals as we were sitting right in that meeting as this all started to play out, it would make sense to hang on, and we'll discuss tomorrow what the survey now is going to look like, because it's very different than what we were going to send out. Would that be fair to say, Todd?
Yeah, very fair. I mean, we were in a pretty, thorough work session, and then we got the word that the governor was coming on with this, and so we kind of had to put on the brakes because we could create a survey that then we need to then go back and create another survey based on what was shared, and that actually would have happened based on the kindergarten model that we were creating, and based on the information that they were giving to us, as well as what we will and would ask families. And so we just needed that information before we go and do that. So we are, we've got a skeletal framework, and we've got, a team in place who, that's the one beautiful thing about this administrative team. They're always ahead of the game in terms of getting the work done. They just are.
Yeah.
Other questions for Brooke? Elaine? Oh, and then Elaine, and then Leah.
So I know you just said that you don't have guidance, so take my questions with a grain of salt. And I think you actually answered the first one about lunch. I was going to ask if this 3-foot distance applied to eating situations as well, because that's been a huge sticking point for me because the masks are obviously removed.
Yeah, and the answer is there is no guidance, but we can expect guidance on that.
And then the other question is, I guess, based on the work that you've already done, do you broadly anticipate needing to reshuffle teachers and classrooms, like classmates and teachers, based on, who chooses what kind of thing?
You know what, it's probably too soon. I mean, we've had some, what ifs discussions on that kind of thing. You can well imagine, right? Because, what if there are a lot of parents that choose not to take advantage of this and decide to keep their students in full remote for the rest of the year? What if? I mean, there are tons of what if questions, and we've put a lot of those on the table, but I think we really won't know until we get closer to April, that first week in April.
Okay.
I mean, even the busing situation, I don't know that all parents are going to want their children on the bus the way that we're now going to configure the bus, which is different than how we would have configured the bus 5 days ago. So it's such a moving target for us for all of this. And I do agree with Todd. I think one of the great strengths of this district is the administrative team. They are such hard workers and so flexible and always so passionate about doing what's right for children. So we'll get through it. We'll work through it.
Thanks. Leah?
Elaine took my question. Thanks, Elaine.
Thanks, Elaine.
And I think Sharon had a question.
Sharon, did you have a question? And then Mike.
I do have a question. I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this question. I'm not questioning. I think it's exciting to think that this could happen. But I'm also thinking about that this is a transition for our kids again, and how much lead time will families have to know, is it in 2 weeks we're back to school, or is it what's?
So that's a great question. That really follows up exactly with what Kathy was saying. We will not get, we know that we will not get, as of tonight, now it could change tomorrow, but as of tonight, we were told we won't get information, documentation for guidance for the next 2 to 2.5 weeks. And keeping in mind that the Board of Education has to support this, with the green light first, and then the documentation will flow out to us. And you're absolutely right. It's going to give parents a very short window. You're absolutely, as it will us too.
But we, just to add to that, Brooke, but you and I know we spoke today at length about providing this, all the information that we do currently have to our faculty and staff in a memo,
Yes.
as well as getting a memo out to all communities and parents and families with all the information that we do currently have, so that everybody knows that this is coming down the pike. So we are going to be sharing that with, everybody by week's end, so that, like you said, Sharon, in terms of preparing and being in the know about what is potentially coming down.
Thank you for bringing that up, Todd. I appreciate that. Sharon, that may have been what you were looking for. It may not have been, but yes, we have a plan for getting a memo out to our staff tomorrow and a memo out to our community on Friday.
Thank you. I was thinking specifically about the children and transition for children, but it's all part of the bigger picture. So thank you.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions, and frankly, if you answer the first one, you may very well answer the second one. So based on Governor Baker's press conference yesterday, is sort of the forecast for this a return for elementary, which I assume to be K through 5? And if it's only meant for K through 5, do we have anticipation on what will happen for the middle school aged kids, 6 through 8, and perhaps a timeline for that?
So that's a great question. We actually have been working with the notion of 6 to 8 separately. We rarely silo our principals, to be honest with you, but in this case, with this particular work, we have. And so our principals have been meeting with regularity. And Todd, feel free to jump in if I'm saying anything inappropriately or missing something. But our middle school principals have been meeting separately to create a similar model to what we were looking at with the elementary school, but more obviously more inclined towards the middle school, what will effectively work for the middle schoolers. So that discussion for Neshoba has been ongoing. So that to us, I feel like the commissioner just caught up with us today, to be honest with you, because we have been doing this work in the background. So I feel very comfortable and hopeful that we may be able to do something for the middle school. And I think, Mike, I'd shared that with you once before, that it was my hope that we could do that. And I still see us aiming for that. But I would say that the difference, Mike, between when you and I spoke about this is I didn't know if we could get the full K to 5 range in. So that's different from when we had our discussion. So that changes our focus a little bit. So that's why I'm saying I'm being hopeful, but I'm not going to promise right now because I need to see that will work effectively first.
Okay, so all right, that's great. So I guess my second question is, as things sort of unfold, and I guess I'm just sort of projecting here that they will continue to unfold and guidance will continue to evolve. Is there a possibility that decisions within the district will be made in the absence of preemptive guidance from the state, or will we be waiting on the state to provide us with guidance and then respond to that?
It's such a great question, Mike, because, Todd and I were talking today about the amount of work that our team has done that has literally been thrown out the window time and again. I am not complaining. None of us are complaining. But if you think about all the work that we put in the summer, and even like the SLT time, which now has kind of gone completely by the wayside, effective April 1st. The amount of work that our teams have put in has just been just incredible, So I don't know, Todd, do you want to respond to that maybe?
I agree with you because, we did talk about this because last summer, the amount of work that our teams were doing, and when they first initially came out at 6 feet, and then they came back to us and said, please go into your buildings and audit at 3 feet. Is 3 feet possible? And we did all of that enormous amount of work in 6 buildings with our staffs, our principals, and our facilities. And then that changed into, please create 3 models. You need to create and then submit 3 models. And then we did do that. And glad we had those, because we have obviously transitioned between some models and have those models to work with. But then getting ahead of this as well, thinking, okay, what's full return going to look like even before the governor came out yesterday, because we need to be looking at that. Same thing with the SLT time. We spent so much, the enormous amount of time with the department, with administrators. When that first survey came out, multiple iterations of that. Our high school going to hybrid on March 1st, and now in April, potentially that synchronous learning time potentially going out the window, because if they're not going to count, say, hybrid learning time anymore, because we have to go full in, then that we just look at the amount of time we put into that and spent on
so
doing
it's really a strange place, Mike, for us to be in. Which is why there's not an easy answer. I mean, we can just tell you that what we're up against, but I don't think that there's an easy answer on any of this, because at the end of the day, we still have to be in compliance. Like, no matter
right. And that was made very clear today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's the best answer we can give. It's probably not.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that there's a lot of gray there. I think I guess my point, and again, this doesn't require a response, but I guess my point is that it feels to me like this is what's coming. Like this is sort of coming like this. It felt like when the bus limitations were lifted, it was like, okay, I can almost anticipate that the recommendations are going to be from 6 to 3 foot. And then if the K-5 is being recommended, I suspect that the middle school recommendation will be emerging at some point soon. And that's where that question came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
I know it was a long report tonight, and I apologize, but I just felt that we wanted to kind of capture everything.
Elaine has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could clarify something I thought I heard you say, that the remote learning would have to be an option for this year, but is that implying that it's not something that will be on the table for next year, or is that just...
So that's a great question, and you picked that up accurately. So okay. I'm not sure right now that, and that has been a topic for discussion, of course, right across the board. But I would tell you, regionally, we were looking at, I was very excited about some of the work that we were doing regionally as school districts, multiple school districts coming together, looking at something, what could we do in that kind of vein. But there again, you're looking at work that's being done. And then when this comes along and says, yeah, probably no more remote, it's like, oh, okay. Again, more work that people were doing to try to get ahead of things and be thoughtful, because it really does get back to, like Sharon's point. Sharon wasn't really being specific to the couple of weeks, but when you only have a couple of weeks, and it kind of also gets to what Kathy says, you can't turn on a dime. You can't turn a school district on a dime in a couple of weeks. And no matter how you change your compliance issues. I mean, for busing, for example, we're still going to have to get inside of 2 weeks all students organized on buses again. We don't know. Will we have enough drivers? I hope so. I mean, those are all things that normally you plan a year in advance, and now we're going to be looking at this little tiny window, so there's a lot of work to do. But I think that if the remote component is left in there for parents, and I'm not so sure that he's taking it off the table completely for next year, but I think that in the background, I think that we are looking at a couple of very cool ideas that, if they have the opportunity to blossom, I think would be really fun to watch grow.
Thank you. Anything else, Leah?
Kathy, is it possible that we could ask Brooke, and Brooke, maybe you can give us information about the pooled testing initiative and how that plugs into all of this?
Can I interrupt? I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take. It wasn't part of the COVID update. Do you have information about the pool testing?
Yeah, I would say, so Leah, that's a great question. I think what came out today, there was news on pool testing today, And that, please don't hold me to the date, but I want to say till April 18th or something now, Todd, I think is where it was, because remember that there was kind of a finite time for pool testing to be cut off. I want to say March 28th or something like that. And so it was like we looked at this and said, well, it's going to be too expensive for us to continue on after March 28th, you know? And so even today, when it came out, well, now it's going to be extended to March 18th, I thought, well, that's just like 2.5 more weeks. Like that's not what we need. And so I think you're seeing a lot of superintendents, especially from about 117 South, a lot of superintendents are kind of saying, not sure that we're going to jump into this right now. So I would say it's something that's out there that's being talked about certainly a lot, but it certainly doesn't have 100% buy-in right now for multiple reasons. And, you know, Lisa and I actually just had a discussion before we came on air tonight, and she said, honestly, I just don't know that we have the resources to be able to do what they want us to do in Neshoba. So know that there's ongoing discussion on that, but nothing for me to bring forward tonight.
You're right about April 18th. That is the accurate date, Brooke. And Leah, any information regarding pool testing can be found on the DESE website. They did update it with the current pool testing guidance that they identified for us today.
Lee, is that the information you were looking for?
Yeah, it's just that we're not pursuing it, which is, you know, understandable for the reasons that Brooke listed. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think we're ready for teaching and learning, Brooke.
Okay, I'll turn this over to Dr. McGuire.
Okay, so just to revisit our the additional Chromebooks that we know we've been waiting, which seems like years for, even though we did order them very early on in the summer. They did arrive. Right before the February break. So the elementary principals, myself, and the technology department did have a chance to meet and create a plan for the disbursement of those 192 Chromebooks across 3 different schools. So about 66 Chromebooks per building were delivered over the break. The technology department worked to inventory those and get them to be working, as well as the elementary principals took inventory and did an audit of all of the laptops within their buildings, because not only will every 3rd through 5th grader in the elementary schools be able to have, you know, an individual device, but we also, you know, have been working to provide devices for our K through 2 as well, if needed. Also, we worked on with the MCAS testing, those students who might have to come in that are remote learners, anybody who needs to come in will need to have a device as well. So we were working on those plans. So those have been deployed. They are in the building. So we're excited about that. And we're already looking ahead to ordering our Chromebooks for next year, because we know we're seeing on the horizon that there will be delays, et cetera, in terms of moving forward. So huge thanks to the elementary principals for doing that extra work with auditing the amount of devices that are in their buildings, as well as the technology department to really get those up and running and ready to be in buildings for when kids came back this week after the break. And then Kathy also asked me to just do a quick reminder about next Friday. And I'm just gonna, and I know that I shared with everybody yesterday, I think, the directions for you folks to join us next Friday. So if you have any questions on registering, you can certainly email us. I provided in that email to you folks some video clips, as well as some instructions on how to register and get into our Sketch platform that allows you to choose workshops, get into the keynote speech in the morning. But this is also the flyer that we put out. We're really excited about next Friday, as much as it's, you know, confined to a virtual space. We met with Mark Brackett's team this afternoon. We gave him some really important topics as well that are pertinent to Neshoba, so that he can address them in our keynote. But just to give a sense of his speech and his work with us, he'll be offering about an hour and 15 minutes with us in the morning, and then doing a Q&A session virtually. And then he's also offering a workshop for us in the afternoon. This is really a treat. He is one of the most coveted speakers right now for social emotional learning and emotional intelligence. So we're so excited to have him. This is our schedule for the day, where we'll start with that keynote. Brooke and I will say a few words as well. We've got some offline asynchronous activities for our staff. We've got a workshop in the morning right before lunch. Thanks to Tom Hool and the cafeteria staff, they're doing a lunch and bringing lunches to all of the buildings for a bag lunch. And then we'll do a session in the workshop, workshop in the afternoon. And then we're going to wrap it up with some student work and some student video shorts and some of their own work on fostering belonging at the very end of the day. We're still going to be doing a bunch of raffles. Dr. Brackett has signed a variety of copies of his book, Permission to Feel. So we're going to be raffling those off. We've also been going around to area businesses as we normally do, and they're going to be offering some gift cards, et cetera, to be raffling off for the day as well. So, and here are a bunch of just some of the choice sessions that we have and some samples of topics, but over 30 workshops really focused around emotional intelligence and social emotional learning, really tied into, you know, where we've been over the past year in the pandemic. So it's going to be a great day. We hope you folks can join us, even if it's for the keynote in the morning. I think that'll really, really be worth it. I've heard Dr. Brackett speak in the past, and he is pretty sensational on this topic, and he really speaks from his own personal experience growing up as a kid. So
we are so excited.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I would, if as Todd said, even if you can just go to the keynote. I've been to every one that the district has had. I think this is the third. Is this the third one, Todd? We had.
This would be the third in a row, yeah, since
Coros, just exceptional speakers, and then the different workshops. So if you can work it into your schedule, Friday morning on March 5th, it really is a great opportunity, and covers a lot of the bases in terms of social emotional learning and fostering a culture of belonging. So again, Todd, thanks to you and your team for pulling this together. And I'm definitely looking forward to attending on Friday.
Yeah, we are too. The teaching and learning team has just been fantastic. So kudos to them and the work that they've done. And we're already looking for our next speaking victims for next year. So we'll get right on that.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right. So now we are at the budget update. So Brooke, again, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks. And I'm going to turn it over to Pat here in a minute, but just to kind of update our school committee. So we were kind of double or triple booked last night because we were invited to both Bolton and Stow. And so I stayed in Stow, and then Pat jumped off of Stow and went over to Bolton and gave the Board of Selectmen a bit of a snapshot of where we're at with our budget. And so we want to thank both Boards of Selectmen for inviting us. Of course, we always appreciate that. And our communities are always kind of at different places here through the process, and they're wonderfully flexible, invite us to always to the FinCom meetings as well to kind of go through our budget in detail, and we'll do the same thing again this year. So we did kind of go through a bit of a slide deck that Pat's going to go through with you tonight, and just quickly highlight the salient points of where we've landed at this point in time. I don't know that we'll make a whole lot of changes between now and when you vote on the budget, because I think this is probably where we've landed. It's the best place that we can be. I would say I'm not comfortable with the amount of efficiencies or cuts or whatever you want to call it that are going to have to be done for us to get back into the numbers, but it is what it is, and we've done this every year. Every year that I've been here anyway, we've done it. So that's where we're sitting tonight. So Pat, do you want to share the screen? And if you can kind of quickly go through.
Alita's actually going to bring it up for me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lita, if you can. We're not going to read every slide, and you've seen all of this ahead of time. So because we've sent it, this information you've already seen. So we won't read every single thing, but Pat will just kind of go through and highlight the salient points, and then I'll just kind of fill in where we need to.
So first, I'd like to say, I just want to run through the PowerPoint, and at the end, I can bring up the executive summary, which has the details by line. Perhaps if you can save all your questions for the end, that would be great. Next slide, please. The expenditure budget is $59,022,941. It's a 1.71% increase from last year. E&D as a revenue source is $1 million. And $1.8 million in cuts have been made. 1.2 are unspecified at this time due to contract negotiations and retirement savings. Can you go to the next slide? The assessment increases for the last year are as follows. And first should come Bolton, 2.94%, Lancaster, 3.53%, and Stow at minus 0.42%. And you can see in the report below, the operating budget versus capital versus debt. This was a request from the Lancaster FinCom so that we could break out our operating budget from the capital equipment on our budget page. Next slide, please. Health insurance rates are in the budget at an increase of 5%. Also included in that is additional enrollment that has happened over the last year. Transportation is 8.3% increase. This is an option year renewal, and there's no additional for this year. We have no additional revolving fund offset at this time. The feasibility study debt is included in that, and it's $22,500. Increase in utilities is due to open windows, air purifiers, and reduction in revolving fund program offsets.
So this is really COVID related, that particular.
A lot of these things, yes. And we'll probably continue into next year. Substitute teachers, if you look at the line there, you can see some trending changes. I adjusted the numbers so that they seem to agree to prior years. Next slide, please. Oh, and teaching and learning increases. Increases due to additional instructional software that we've needed because of remote learning and the current hybrid program. Special education, you'll see a reduction because of some out-of-district tuition savings. Technology, you'll see some increases in the contract service line, and that's because of the increase in the cost of our bandwidth. Actually, we're incurring those costs second half of this year, and we'll expect it to go into next year as well. Hardware is down because of no unnecessary purchases, and supplies are up because of Chromebooks deployed, the number of Chromebooks deployed. Athletics, mostly reductions due to COVID challenges, and everything else is pretty much level funded, hoping for the best and that we can bring the kids back onto the fields and into the pools and moving forward. And center, Mary Rollinson and Florence Sawyer elementary teaching has increased, and that's all due to the full day kindergarten that was implemented for this year. And the additional funding is in our Chapter 70 funds.
We just want to say that what we projected would happen with the full day K is exactly what did happen. So you'll see that our Chapter 70 was increased basically by the amount that we anticipated it would be as a result of the full day K.
Now, this screen shows the budget drivers. I know that the print is really small on this, but you could just go to the next slide. I did a pie chart on it to give you a little bit more of a visual idea of what is going on as far as where most of our expenditures are happening. As you can see, salaries, insurance and benefits, and
there's
assessments.
There's really your 80%.
Yeah, over 80%, about 82% of the budget. And the other programs that are key are really small percentages. Next slide, please. One of the things that was asked was that we show some 5-year trends in our budget increases. As you can see, over 5 years, it's trended downward for this year anyway. And assessment changes, the 5-year trends, as you can see by community, it's for some communities, it seems to be pretty steady. And then for the others, it seems to be up and down. And I think a lot of that has to do with the minimum local contribution factor. We never know how that's going to come out year to year. Next slide, please. This is the 5-year rolling foundation enrollment, and these are the numbers that we're working with for this year. We have Bolton at a little over 32%, and Lancaster 29.84%, Stow at 38.137%. And also the high school enrollment for capital assessment. Now that would be the assessment just for the high school debt. This year, both Bolton and Stow have 311 students. Probably never happen again, same number. And Lancaster has 271. Next slide, please. Now the revenues by source. This is where we stand right now. And I'm pretty sure that these budgets should be these numbers should be pretty close. The only thing that we may anticipate maybe a slight change at the state level, but I think right now where this sits is pretty much where we're going to land. And as you can see here too, E&D is at $1 million. I think that's about it. Alita, can you bring up the executive summary, please?
While she's bringing up the executive summary, one of the questions that kind of arose last night was about grants that are, or funding that we're going to get in that it's COVID related. And it was, I just want to be clear that we never fund what ifs in our budget processing, like what if we get 200,000 or what if we get 500,000. You cannot be fiscally responsible if that is the approach that you're taking. And, I explained, for us, the money that has come into the district as linked to COVID has all basically been remuneration for costs that we've already incurred that has come back into offset. So I want to really be clear. I think that some people may think that it's kind of rained money into Neshoba, and that just is not the case at all. What we've received has been directly linked to extenuating costs that have occurred, and that money has come back in. The other thing that I think that people don't realize is very often our grants, not all, but a large number of our grants follow the Title I pathway. And the Title I pathway is really only through Lancaster, because Lancaster is the only school component of our district that receives Title I money. And that's even a little iffy right now, because we're close to that piece falling off. So if that piece falls off, then we are going to be in a position where we won't receive certain funding. So I think there's a couple of key things to remember along the way. So first takeaway, we will not budget grant funding that we don't know for sure is coming through the pike. Now we have ESSER 2 lined up and ESSER 3 lined up. ESSER 2 is just coming through the pipeline right now. I don't believe, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe it's wrapped up on Beacon Hill.
No, it isn't.
And I brought it up with the town administrators this morning, and it doesn't sound like DESE has had some webinars for us and talked to us about it, but it sounds like the Municipal Association has not necessarily done that yet with municipal leadership. So because there is going to potentially be a direct link between the municipalities and the school districts and that ESSER 2 money. So more to come on that. behind ESSER 2 is what we're projecting they're going to call ESSER 3. Now that will be we suspect a larger pot of money, but we have nothing concrete on any of this right now. So for us, it might as well not even be on our radar because we've got nothing at all. So we're certainly not going to build anything into a budget where we don't have something concrete coming in.
This is the executive summary that I spoke of. And if anybody, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at different lines, or if you have any questions, I answer them to the best of my knowledge right now.
So, Rich, I see your hand up.
Would you mind going back to the executive summary, or I mean, not the executive summary, the PowerPoint that you put up? I was just confused by you were saying that the salaries and the benefits were like 80% of the budget. And then there was something regarding the assessment. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What I said was salaries, benefits, and the assessments from the state are about 82%.
Got it. So the assessments from the state, forgive my ignorance, what is that?
That would be charter school, school choice.
Okay.
We have a special ed assessment as well.
I got it. So that's, there's two types of assessments. There's what you assess the towns, and then there's the state assessment. Okay.
The state assessments, right.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure the best way to handle this. If you feel grounded enough in the information, that's fine, and we don't have to put anything else up on the screen. If there's something that you have specific questions on, then we're happy to answer them. And if we don't have the answers tonight, we'll go back and look for the answers and bring them forward to you, or we can certainly email responses out to you. Amy?
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the unspecified cuts and how that relates to a level services budget. Because the last presentation, I think you start off by saying this is a level services budget.
Right. But we couldn't get it, we couldn't back into the numbers that we needed to back into. So it no longer becomes a level services budget. When we presented it, that's where we were gunning for, but we couldn't do it once the assessment numbers came out, and we realized that, I think we at one point in time, Pat, if memory serves me right, with the level services, I think it was like an 8% or 9%.
Almost 8%, yeah.
Yeah, almost 8% increase for Bolton. So we couldn't do it.
Okay, and when it says that the unspecified cuts come from contract negotiations and retirement savings, can you elaborate on that?
That's not the only place that she was giving examples for that.
Examples.
Yeah, she was just giving examples. So let me take that for example, like we've got something built in for our negotiations with our unions, which will start next week. We anticipate if the number is larger than what we've built in, we will have to make more cuts than we anticipate. So we really want to wind that CBA discussion up as quickly as we can so we can move forward and know exactly what we're going to do. So that's one thing, because we've got negotiations out there. So that's what she's talking about when she's alluding to that. But the truth is, I mean, and I said this before, that you can't make those kinds of cuts with pencils. Those are bodies. Those are jobs, is what those are. We try to make sure that we have made all of our cuts by that April break, and you'll see us do the same thing again this year, because then that gives the people a chance to go out, make sure that their resumes are brushed up again and ready to go out to find work in other communities.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question is 1 point, I don't have the number in front of me, 1.2 or 1.8, whatever it was, is that in the context of previous year's budgets, is that a large amount of unspecified cut?
We think it's a large amount. Yeah, we're not comfortable with it, and that's what I said right at the beginning. I mean, as I leave the district, I would tell you what budgeting in this district has been a bear. It just really has been. It's really, really tough make these kinds of cuts year after year. And I remember when I first came in, and it was like, you know, we don't really make cuts, you know, but we find efficiencies. Like that was kind of like the notion. And I very quickly realized that, no, these are cuts that we are having to make. It's not just finding efficiencies. You know, finding efficiencies is a 10,000 piece over here or a 5,000 piece over there. But when you're talking just under 2 million, those aren't little efficiencies out there, you know. So but you know, you never know. Between now and April, a lot of things could happen, right? So I mean, and she had also alluded to savings from, you know, if we have any more retirements. Now, normally in a normal year, we know a year in advance about our retirements. This is not a normal year. And I can see people just saying, I think I'm done. You know, I don't know that I want to continue to do this anymore. So it won't surprise me that we don't have some additional resignations that we don't know about tonight that could happen in the next month or month and a half. So, you know, the gift that time gives us is to see how much will naturally play itself out before we have to go into to finish up and do whatever else we need to do. I think that, you know, we're meeting already with the principals, the administrative team, and saying, okay, where are other areas? What are other things that we can look at? Because this is not a pencils, you know, or small cuts. So in short, the answer is this is a lot for us to cut.
Other questions, Leah, and then Mike?
So I guess I have a two-part question. The first part is, you know, the unspecified cuts, that number, that 1.8 million that we don't have covered at this point in time, that is due to the fact that our towns told us that we needed to cap spending, and therefore we need to shave the budget. Is that right?
So let me just go after that, because I think what we always try to be really conscientious in how we answer that question, because that question comes up every year. So I think how we look at it as administrative team is that it doesn't necessarily drive us. It doesn't necessarily solely drive the process. But the flip side of that is it doesn't make sense that to take forward a budget that your FinCom, your Board of Selectmen, or your communities won't accept, because then you're making cuts in June and July to make it work, and that's not fair to anyone. And so, you know, I think we really want to be conscientious here, because, you know, I think that this is a tough year, and it was a tough fiscal year for our communities too. So we understand that. We do understand that, and so it's I guess what I want to make sure is that this never goes out about being about blame, because it's really not. But it is, what is the appetite in the community to support this as we move forward? I hope.
Yeah, and I totally get that, Brooke, and I think that I'm not looking to blame anyone. I
didn't think that you were. Yeah. I want to be really clear on that. I was just saying that in generalities, not specific to you.
And you know, looking at the larger picture and looking at, you know, boards of selectmen are meeting and they're discussing their budget constraints, and all of the problems are very, very real. But I think that it's important for the communities to understand that as much as they spend on the schools, and we do spend a lot on the schools, that we are not able to spend what is needed this coming year. And really, you know, we're struggling, and that there are structural issues that are beyond our purview to solve and manage as budget season rolls around each year. So our communities need to be paying attention to those structural problems that our three towns have to address our revenue streams. And I think that the second part of my question is, it is my lifelong goal to understand the differences between the three communities and why some communities are paying so much more than, say, Stow is. So Stow's bar graph, we're actually paying less this year than we paid last year. So Pat, could you very quickly, in a nutshell, summarize that for anybody who's listening, why it is that Stow's number is in the negative this year?
Well, they're pretty stable as far as their minimum local contribution. So that Bolton is in a situation where their minimum local contribution went up. So that had you know, an impact that wasn't in their favor as far as their percentage. I think it's probably just the fact that Stow is stable in that respect. And Bolton's a growing community. I'm not saying that Bolton isn't stable. I'm saying,
okay, I was just going to go back after that. Yeah.
Saying that. No, I just mean that their growth is probably a little bit more stable.
I think it goes back to the wealth factor.
And the wealth factor as well.
Valuation of the land, and that's really what determines that minimum contribution number. And when that number goes up, and somebody like Don Lowe is trying to keep that percentage, and I think I mentioned that in an email to you folks once, that, you know, somebody like Don or Orlando, who was really monitoring this, because we knew that Stow would be in the same sort of position that they find themselves in this year. So we knew it was really Bolton and Lancaster that we were looking at. And as soon as we saw that number go up in minimum contribution, and then you're looking at that percent, it's a fairly substantial amount for them to come to terms with.
And then you can factor in also enrollment. That can be a factor in any given year. So
many variables.
So many variables. It's very complex.
But again, I would just say that this is another structural dimension.
I would agree with you.
Residents need to understand this is not magic. These are deliberate choices that we're making as communities that are creating these situations. So, you know, our leaders are hard at work trying to manage it, but I would argue that we need to pay attention to more of the macro problem, or not problems, but opportunities that we have to manage it in the future.
I think Leah, so thank you so much, because I think you just nailed it, like all of it. I think I want to go back to one of Amy's comments, and you know, you'll recall that we didn't even go to any type of wish list with our principals or administrators this year, because we couldn't do it, which is why we aimed for level services. And then as soon as we started seeing the numbers come in, and we realized, oh my gosh, we can't do level services here because this is not going to work. It's just not a good feeling. And you know, when you I'm going to be curious to watch as other school districts come out with their budgets, if everybody's at a 1.7% increase like we are, because your teachers matrix alone is over 4%. Alone. And so for us, again, just common sense would tell you that if, you know, you've got your bulk of your teachers on that matrix, and that's where it is, and you're landing at a 1.7% increase, that doesn't make sense. That means that you're going to lose, you have to lose some of the teachers in that matrix in order to get yourself to that 1.7% increase. You know, because I'm seeing districts right now that are coming in at that 3-4%, which to me makes total sense. But very nicely put, Leah. Thank you.
Mike had a question. And then Rich.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to thank Leah for sharing such noble lifetime goals publicly with the school committee. Really something to be sought after. So I guess my question is, typically in a typical year, right? So you will come to the committee and you will provide sort of these evolving iterations, which will inevitably result in lower and lower percentages as we meet our landing spot. And this year we've only had 1 or 2, and our final vote comes, I think, in our next meeting. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Can you just share with us what the response was with our current numbers when you shared them out with Lancaster and with Bolton, since their numbers are the ones that are elevated, and the request was even a little bit lower?
Yeah. So I think that right now we sit very comfortably. Right now, I did meet with the town administrators this morning, so they know full well the numbers. Of course, Stow is ecstatic, and rightfully so, you know. And so I think that Bolton and Lancaster, as I sit here tonight, I think are comfortable. I'm pretty sure that there was plenty of opportunity at this morning's meeting when we talked budget to say, I can't live with this, or, you know, our communities can't live with this. So because that was our topic, one of our key topics for discussion was budget this morning. So, you know, I don't know what to say to you, Mike, other than I think that if there was opportunity, if something wasn't going to work, I think it would have been shared loudly with me this morning.
Rich?
Yeah, just building on what Leah said. Leah, I looked at like the Minuteman budget, for instance, and they take I think our school district takes a 5-year rolling average for enrollment, and Minuteman takes a 4-year rolling average.
Right.
And so we're actually on the other end of that, right? So our assessment is growing faster than Bolton and Lancaster's, for example, because our rolling enrollment's actually higher, right? So I think I'm still trying to figure it out too, but I think it cuts both ways. We just happen to be benefiting here in Stow. In fact, in the last 3 years, we've had it go down.
Yeah.
We've had it go down twice in the last 3 years. But when we look at the Minuteman budget, it's been going up by 20%, I think, year over year for almost 3 years. So, and part of there's other factors there, but I think a lot of it has to do with enrollment, and we just happen to be on the other end of that in that district, as opposed to our district where we're getting, our enrollment trend has been declining, and we've been steady in terms of our valuation. So,
Thank you. Other questions for Brooke or Pat? Okay, well, thank you. And we have our public hearing next week, and then this will be part of the presentation. So thank you, and also thanks. I know this is not an easy job this year, and but I think the towns are appreciative of the extent to which you work with them, because prior to you being here, it never happened. It was not unusual for the superintendent to come forward with a 7 or 8% increase and just throw it on the table, and I've seen a significant change in the level of cooperation, and it's appreciated, but I know it's not easy. Mm-hmm. And I know when it comes time to make those unspecified cuts, it's going to be difficult. And but to Leah's point, people have to understand what it all means. So people may be unhappy by the cuts, but it's a product of the work that needed to be done with the regional school district and the towns. So thank you. And thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. New business. Brooke?
Well, obviously the kindergarten full return is off the table tonight, so we're not having that discussion. So we just take a little bit of time with that. Okay. And I think Pat's just going to go through the employees and insurance update with you quickly. And I think she kind of already alluded to that.
I think Anne Marie's doing it.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. My apologies, Anne Marie.
No worries. No worries. And Pat did cover it a little bit.
And I know Steve's got his hand up too, so I certainly saw you, Steve.
Go.
Steve, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, there was a line on the agenda tonight for school choice.
Oh, no, it was in the materials. Someone had requested information relative to what we pay.
Okay.
For choice. Yeah. That's part of the meeting materials.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Now, Anne Marie, do you want to pipe in? Sorry, my apologies for that, for the employee insurance update.
Sure, and Pat really gave the answer, during the budget presentation. Pat and I met with our Maya representative on February 11th, and she gave us the news that each of our health plans will have a 5% increase this year, and our dental plan increase will be 0.18%. Because there's the other side of that coin, though, besides the increase, she was very quick to tell us because of the decrease in use because of the COVID, that there's going to be a full month of premium holiday this year, so that for 1 month, neither the district nor the employees will be charged for the health insurance. So that will, to a very large extent, offset, the increase. So, and then, of course, selfishly, for the employees, for the month of whatever month we picked, I think was it September maybe, there'll be 2 paychecks from which the insurance premium will not be taken. So that was good news. That's all for the active employees, though. The retirees, the premium holiday doesn't apply to the retirees, and their retiree renewal is in January, so we don't have information on the retiree renewal.
And I'd just like to note that those savings are all in the budget already. That isn't something that we're just waiting for the savings.
Rats.
Any questions for Anne Marie? Joseph?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, it's not for Anne Marie. It's just a comment in response to my colleague from Stow, Mr. Rubenstein, who asked about the school choice issue under the budget. I just wanted to thank Pat for doing that. I was the one who requested that at the Budget Warrant Subcommittee meeting, and I appreciate that. I did see that slide. Thank you very much. So I didn't want you to think that I wasn't appreciative of the effort you put into that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to warrant signatories? I've been waiting for this one all night. I'm on needles and pins.
So I'm not sure who put that particular item on. I thought that was school committee actually that had put that on. Had they not? Yes, I think so. I think
somebody requested to review if Mike should be relieved of his duty, right? Wasn't that the idea?
I think that's exactly what it was, Amy.
I believe it was Mr. Gleason.
It was Mr. Gleason. I put this
Okay,
on
go,
at the.
go.
You want me to speak to it? I think
I totally do.
I'll be happy to speak to it. About a year ago, we voted to appoint Mr. Horesh as the authorized signatory for the warrants. He has done a yeoman's effort for the past year, and it's my suggestion that he be given at least, if not partial, full release of his obligation responsibilities. And I think that the wealth of warrant execution should be shared among the committee. And I would leave it up to the committee how they want to do it. I'm certainly, as a member of the Budget and Warrant Subcommittee, willing to take on this particular role in part. And I hope that maybe somebody else would join me and share in that responsibility.
I think to be clear that we had to move to this when we moved to remote meetings, because normally we would just pass the warrants around and sign them. And I think you're assuming that Mike is willing to give up this responsibility, Joe.
I know he is.
Well, look at him. He's saying no.
Unwilling. Unwilling.
I think another point you made, as I recall, Joseph, that is perhaps it should be the responsibility of someone on budget and warrant. Did you say that at one point?
I'm just suggesting it. I mean, Mr. Horesh is not a member of Budget and Warrant, but I'd be fair to be honest with you, Madam Chairman. I did speak to Mr. Horesh about this, and he intimated to me that he would like at least some partial relief in regards to the execution. So, I mean, I'm happy to do it, and I would hope again that perhaps some of my fellow members of the Budget Warrant would share in the responsibility.
So, can I make a suggestion in terms of how to proceed? If the committee is willing to assign this responsibility to the members of the Budget and Warrant Committee, then maybe the Budget and Warrant Committee could set up a schedule and a rotation for signing, unless that makes it too complicated and one member of Budget and Warrant just wants to take it on.
I'm happy to continue as an adjunct signatory. That's no problem.
Thank you. Leah?
I don't mean to step outside of my bounds. I'm not Budget and Warrant, but I wonder if there's any way, I asked this before when we first went full remote, if there's a way to electronically sign these things with DocuSign or something like that. Like I even have like an electronic signature that I just paste into stuff that I need to sign electronically. I don't know.
I use your electronic signature too a lot, Leah. It's becoming very handy. Thanks. Pat, do we have the ability to sign these electronically?
No, I don't think we do at this time.
Is it illegal? Or can we?
I don't know. I'd have to check into that.
Okay, would you check into that?
Sure.
Because Leah has a signature available that we could just plug in. So can we come back to this perhaps on March 10th when Pat brings forward more information about that?
Absolutely.
Is
My
it,
question is, do you usually use signature on her checks, or what's the story here?
I don't think you need to know that. That's between me and Leo.
It's mostly for autographs, but
autographs, yeah. Okay, so Mike, do you mind signing until there is we see whether or not we can do this electronically?
More than happy to.
Thank you so much for your service. It's greatly appreciated. And your problem is you did such a good job. If you were screwing up, we wouldn't want you to keep doing it. So
just don't ask Alita then.
No. Okay. So now I think we're ready for subcommittee reports, budget and warrant.
Budget and warrant would normally be reviewing the operations expenses for the month of January, but with all of the budget and other things that have been going on, that will be delayed until our next meeting.
Thank you. Mary, personnel?
What I said before in the beginning counts for this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Leah, policy?
So policy has not had any pressing agenda items. I highly recommend if anybody has anything for us to do, please let me know.
Okay, Leah, I'm going to go over the notes and see if there's anything in the parking lot for policy.
Right. MASC has got no updates for us to consider. So that's that.
Okay, thank you. Communication, Mike?
So communication subcommittee met yesterday. Among other things, we discussed the protocols for the public hearing to be held next week. Kathy, thank you for your contributions to that.
Well, thank you for yours. It helped a lot. Thank you.
Sure. We also discussed next steps with Chris Horan from Horan Communications, and we'll be meeting once more, and then more than likely be coming to the larger committee with a some sort of recommendation in his potential future role with the district. So that's forthcoming.
Great, thank you. No report from the building committee. Is that correct, Joe?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Diversity, equity, acceptance, and racial justice. Elaine.
Yes, we met on Monday and we did a series of exercises focused on norm building and building a strong community culture. And so right now we're taking feedback for kind of any and all possible topics that people are interested in. And we're going to start having some conversations about where to take it after that.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, items to be considered for next agenda. We pull up the planning calendar. I had that at some point, usually at the end of the year, the end of May, beginning of June, that CPAC gives us their year in review. It's an update from the chairs of CPAC. So if there's a way to fit that in. We also, hang on. Let's see, we're in March. So I have for next time, we have the budget vote on the 10th. We have the school choice discussion on the 10th. We did have a request to bring forward information, if we can get it, about efforts to immunize teachers. I know you spoke briefly about it tonight, Brooke, but maybe we'll have more information by then. And again, just as a topic of interest, it sounds like it would be very difficult for even towns to try to put together
It is
an immunization clinic. And I know the town of Lancaster had said that if they had something going for their employees,
well, in all honesty, they have been working together. The three communities have been working together, and that came through loud and clear in our discussion this morning. And they're really, I do believe that they're very committed to try to find some way of doing this. I really got that sense strongly. Would you not say that, Todd? You were in that meeting as well with me.
Yes, I would agree that there's certainly a community effort to try to make that happen.
Between the three communities, yeah.
Yes, between the three communities.
Okay, anything else for the March 10th agenda? We will have a superintendent search update. There will be some action items on that for the committee. Leah?
Maybe, I'm not sure if anything will develop by then, but something about the mascot.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Update on the mascot.
If I can just mention too, those student voice sessions are set up, so we'll have something to offer next meeting.
Excellent. Okay. Mike?
Yeah, realizing that this may still be in the formative stages, would it be appropriate to have some sort of update about the full return model that may be forthcoming?
I sure hope so, but I think by that point in time, if I was a betting woman, and of course, sometimes we know that I like to, but I would say that we'll probably know where the Board of Education is heading. But I'll be surprised if we have any DESE guidance by then. We may have, though. So it's hard to say. But I mean, certainly, we'll want to report out on the work that we've done to that point in time anyway.
Okay. Anything else for the future agenda? How about anything else for the good of the order? Does anyone have anything they want to contribute? And I do see Elaine's hand inching up. You have the floor.
Thank you. I wish that we could be together in person for this, but such is life. I want to let everyone know that I will be at the end of my so I won't be running for the election.
Elaine, can everybody hear?
No, it's hard to hear you, Elaine. So can you just get a little closer to that microphone?
I have to say it again.
All right. I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm going to step down at the end of my term in May. I'm very proud of being a part of this committee and all of the work that we have done together. But this has been a rough year. And I am volunteer, so I have the privilege to be able to step aside. I know a lot of people don't, so I hope I can find other ways to continue to support everyone as we all, individually and collectively. And I don't plan on going anywhere on the DRJ committee since that is an advisory committee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we put that to a vote?
I don't believe so. Let's try though, Mike. I want the record to show that Mike voted no, that you can't leave.
I did see that and chuckled a little bit in the middle.
Okay.
Thank you for everything that you've done, Elaine. I'm very, very sad to hear that you'll be moving on, but I so appreciate what you've done over the past 3 years.
Thank you, Mike. I know we've had a lot of conversations in our couple of years on the personnel subcommittee that were really good conversations, and I will always treasure those times together.
Likewise.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Rich, I was just going to adjourn. Come on, make it snappy. What do you got?
Hey, one thing I don't know. It sounds like our agenda may be lighter. I don't know. I guess we're going to be getting. But I know that we intended, with good intent, to revisit some of our policies or procedures. Was it protocols? Thank you. So I don't know. I know the aim was to do one per meeting or something like that. Maybe we could think about trying to squeeze those back in.
Okay. We'll put something on the agenda and see how if we run out of time, that's the first thing to go.
And boo on you for leaving us, Elaine, but we're happy for you.
Okay. Yes, Brooke.
Yeah, I just want to say to Elaine, you have just been such a joy to work with. You just have been. You're so grounded in your thinking, and I just think that you have brought so much to this committee. From my lens, I just think that you have brought so much to the committee and so much to the district, and I just thank you so much. And I know that this is not an easy decision, and I'm just very respectful of you.
Thank you.
Mary.
And Elaine, I want to echo what Brooke said and Mike's vote that you can't go, and well, we know that you can, and so the fact that with DRJ you have leadership, and this is a place that your voice will be so important, And I'd also like to give you my example that you may be going off now, but there may be a time when you will run again. Your children will be older, and don't wait as long as I did. But we would certainly welcome you back, and we're going to miss your voice. And we'll just have to cherish all the times we have until you're just doing DOJ. Thank you.
Thank you. And I thank you. I should say to the community as well, if anybody is interested, please reach out to me. I am so happy to chat, talk to you about the experiences, advise, mentor, whatever people need. I'm very much happy to do that.
Thank you. Okay, I think that if there is no objection, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I will call the roll. The motion is to adjourn. I say yes. Amy?
Yes.
And Brett?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Joseph?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Elaine?
Yes.
And Leah?
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Hold on to your hats, kids, at 8:39. Good work. Thank